All right, now we are moving on to our next unit that has to do with data and probability. So our big idea for the data portion of the unit is that collecting and displaying and analyzing data helps us to solve problems and understand the real world. Today our concept is demonstrating an understanding of how to design and administer a questionnaire as a form of collecting data. This is in lesson 1, unit 7 of your textbook, page 248 to 250. Following through in the Connect section, here are some guidelines for writing questions for a questionnaire. So a questionnaire is when you're going to conduct a survey, you're going to go out and you're going to ask people this question, hear their response, and check off whichever one response they give. So when you are creating this question, it's important to consider some things. First of all, the question should be understood in the same way by all people to the best of your ability. Suppose, for example, you wanted to find out how much TV people watch. You begin and you think of asking, do you watch a lot of TV, yes or no? But a lot is very open to interpretation. Some people may interpret a lot at 2 hours. Some people might term a lot at 7 hours of TV. So it just depends on what is a lot for your family and for you. A better question that would be more specific, that would get you more specific targeted information, would be how many hours of TV do you watch in a week? And typical meaning usual, in a typical week. So now you have specific information. A lot doesn't become part of it. So you want a question that doesn't have something that can be seen differently to different people. The other thing that you need to consider is that each person should find an answer that he or she would choose. So suppose you wanted to find out people's favorite sports to watch on TV. To watch, I guess, would be key here. You think of asking, what is your favorite sport to watch on TV? Hockey and baseball. What if my favorite sport is soccer? That's not an option there. So you need to make sure you give options that will result in an answer that the person wants to give. Some people prefer different sports. Others might not watch any TV on sports on TV at all. So you need to add more choices. Better question would be, what is your favorite sport to watch on TV? Hockey, baseball, soccer. So you've hit some of the main ones. Perhaps basketball should be there as well. And then have an other option. Very good to have a please specify fill in the answer section so that you can get that specific information. And a none option is also a very good idea. But an other should always be there so that you have an idea as to whether or not the questions that you're asking and the options that you're giving for that question are good options. If you get other an awful lot, you realize, oh, okay, well, maybe I should have included this other thing instead. The question should be fair. It should not influence a person's answer. If it does influence a person's answer, it's what we call a biased question. Suppose you wanted to find out people's opinions on how often students should have phys ed classes. This is what you think of asking. Studies have shown that daily physical activity for children is important. How often should elementary students have phys ed classes? Well, by giving this piece in here at the beginning that studies have shown that it's important, you're influencing that person's answer. So there should be nothing in there about any sort of opinion prior to. This question then provides extra information that might lead the person to answer in a certain way. A better question would be, how many times a week should elementary students have phys ed classes? Never, once, twice, 3 times, 4 times daily. And again, that gives a number of options. Pretty much anything that they could come up with as an answer. We don't need an other here because there's no other options for school. School is 5 days a week. But we are also not giving any information that's going to influence their decision. We're not saying that daily physical activity is important. The other thing that's important is the location in which the survey is conducted can also lead to bias. So not that the question itself is biased, but the location in which it's asked. For example, is it a good idea to ask people in a dentist office if it is important to brush your teeth? Well, probably not, because if you are at the dentist office, you obviously think teeth are important because you go to the dentist to take care of your teeth. So the likelihood is that those people are going to respond that yes, it's important to brush your teeth. Would be better to ask that question in a completely unrelated location. So for example, in a shopping mall or in a grocery store or in a school. There the location can truly influence how people are going to respond. So you want your location to be completely random, not at all in any way related to what your question is about. The sample that is surveyed can also lead to bias. So the sample is the people that you are surveying. And sometimes when we conduct a survey, we don't necessarily survey every single person that might be affected, because that can be a very large number. But we survey what we call a sample. So when you choose your sample should also not be biased. So for example, is it a good idea to ask only the kids playing soccer if we should replace the playground with a second soccer field? Well, no, because again, those people obviously think soccer is really important. So in order to keep this random, you should be asking people on the soccer field, you should be asking people in the playground, you should be asking people on the swings, you should be asking people way out in the field, wherever, in the school, doesn't matter. It has to be people that are not going to be influenced by their interests. Lastly, we want to review first-hand and second-hand data. So this is looking back to your grade 5 stuff. First-hand data is data that you collect. So when you're collecting that survey, you are collecting first-hand data. Second-hand data is what somebody's told you. So for example, if I were to be conducting my survey and I've asked a person a question about, say, the soccer field, how often do you play soccer? Well, I play it 3 times a week, but my buddy also plays it 4 times a week. Well, what he's saying about his buddy then would be considered secondhand data. Secondhand data can also come from other sources. So it can come from databases or computers or encyclopedias. All those kinds of places that you would get the information from makes it secondhand data. All right, so here we have Mia, who wanted to find out which Canadian singer her classmates like best. She handed out this questionnaire. Who's your favorite Canadian singer? Avril Lavigne, Susanna Gluckart, Nelly Furtado, Paul Brandt, Brian Mello, or other. She recorded the results on her tally chart. She concluded that Avril Lavigne was the most popular singer. Her question was a fair question. There was nothing in there that influenced what people were thinking. She's not asked it at, say, for example, an Avril Lavigne concert. She's asked it at school, so its location is not influencing or biased. She has given no clues about her own preferences, so she hasn't said, my favorite singer is Avril Lavigne, who's your favorite Canadian singer, and then lists her options. And she does also give an other, so if one of these doesn't fit what the person's choice is, they have a different option, and other is their different option. So she has conducted a fair questionnaire or a fair survey. All right, so now it's your turn. You're going to do some questions in the textbook that are going to help you with whether or not the question that is provided is fair, or developing a question that is fair, talking about where it might be administered, and so on. So you're going to design, and you are actually going to administer a questionnaire or a survey to your classmates. So off you go, page 250, numbers 1, 2, 4, and 5. And again, of course, if you have questions, make sure you always remember to ask.